Dear colleagues, please allow me to first express my warm thanks to Ruth Hagengruber for inviting me to talk about the beginnings of IAPh. I will not be able, however, to present a full account. It is obvious that a comprehensive history of the beginnings of IAPh could only be elaborated in a cooperative manner. Thus, the following remarks merely provide some bits and pieces that call for contributions voicing the memories of other women philosophers involved, in particular in view of the fact that I was not among the founding members but joined IAPh only later on. In May 1974, an association called, was just mentioned, Assoziation von Philosophinnen in Deutschland was established. The founding members included Valeska Tilsch, elected to be the first chairperson, Brigitte Weishaupt, Ruth Eva Schulz-Seitz, and Irma Teta. Important motivation had come from the American philosopher Linda Lopez McAllister, who was in Germany at that time on the basis of a Fulbright scholarship. In an essay on those early stages, Valeska Tilsch recalls that Linda's report on the founding of SWIP USA in the year 1972 provided inspiration to her German-speaking colleagues. The first report on the founding of that association appeared in the same year, that is 1974, in the Zeitschrift für philosophische Forschung. The following year did, however, bring a nearly complete breakdown. Most of the students who had been interested early on encountered from the part of their professors such strong reservations against any form of feminist research that they had to fear not to be able to get their degrees. It is important to consider that in those years, only very few women were among the professors at philosophy departments in Germany, no one in Austria. When a first public General Assembly of the Association was held on October 10, 1975, in the context of the Congress of the Allgemeine Gesellschaft für Philosophie in Deutschland, just about 4 students attended. In my mind, it is important for us all to read Valeska Tilsch's report on the ever-recurring setbacks and painful acts of humiliation that she and her colleagues had to endure. It was only thanks to the unwavering dedication of the first board members that a renewed beginning was made possible. At a meeting in Würzburg on October 10, 1976, an official act of founding the Assoziation von Philosophinnen in Deutschland as a registered society took place. Ruth Eva Schulz-Seitz, Tübingen, became the new chair, while Brigitte Weishaupt, Zürich, was entrusted with the function of deputy chair, a move that proved most important also from the perspective that it secured essential support from a foreign country. The Association was defined as an association of women academics, I'm quoting now, association of women academics working in the field of philosophy, both at universities and schools and in extramural contexts, who share the intention to promote women's studies, Frauenforschung, in philosophy, and who seek the inclusion of this research in the curricula. More pointedly expressed, the association aimed at, I'm quoting again, elaborating a reflection that lays bare the discrimination of the woman in the male-dominated sphere of philosophy, and that rediscovers hitherto unacknowledged contributions of women philosophers to the overall history of philosophy. Unquote. This definition is provided in Ursula Menzer's report in Das Argument 1981. Sadly, It is my obligation today to inform you that Ursula Menzer has passed away on July 2nd. She will always be remembered as an important part of the beginnings of the association. A few years after the official act of founding, an alteration of the name of the association proved advisable. This is what happened. When the first veritable symposium to be held at the University of Würzburg in October 1980 was organized, it turned out that women philosophers in socialist Eastern European countries were denied the necessary visa due to the politically contested term Deutschland in the name of the association. Therefore, the members attending that Würzburg symposium opted for the new name, Internationale Assoziation von Philosophinnen. As we all know, the term international proved to be a driving force in the further development of IAPh. First, relations to women philosophers outside the German-speaking realm had already been established in the late 1970s, in particular with the professors Ilya Lazari-Pawlowska in Łódź and Junko Hamada in Tokyo, who both were to give papers at IAPh conferences later on. At the Würzburg Symposium 1980, about 40 women from Germany and Switzerland attended. Among them was the late Elfriede Huber-Abrahamowitsch, who had to flee from Vienna, Austria, when the Nazis took over, and who later taught feminist philosophy at the Technical University Zurich, while writing important literary works expressing her horrible experience, poems and short stories for which she received several awards in Switzerland. The second symposium convened at the University of Zurich in 1982 with speakers from 5 countries and with the first talks in English from the USA. One further crucial step was the decision to publish the proceedings of the IAPh symposia in specific volumes, a decision that initiated a truly respectable series of volumes that has been, as we all know, continued to this very day. The first volume documents the meetings held in Würzburg, the 2 meetings held in Würzburg in the 1970s. The title is Philosophinnen von Wegen ins dritte Jahrtausend, Women Philosophers on Path into the Third Millennium, edited by Ursula Menzer and Manon Maren-Griesebach, who, by the way, turned 90 this January. The papers of the symposia in Würzburg 1980 and Zurich 1982 were published in the volume Was Philosophinnen denken, eine Dokumentation. What Women Philosophers Think, a documentation, edited by Halina Bentkowski and Brigitte Weishaupt in 1983. The following book, Was Philosophinnen denken, second volume, that assembles the papers of the symposium at the University of Heidelberg in 1984, includes contributions from France, Monique David-Menard, Italy, Constante Perez, the Netherlands, Maya Pelikan-Engel, and also the first from Austria, Elisabeth List-Graz, who soon was to become a board member of IAPh, as well as Gerda Ambros and Birge Krondorfer, who were to organize the IAPh symposium at the University of Klagenfurt in the year 1988. The invaluable importance of these books lies in the fact that they allow us to apprehend the great variety of approaches and contested issues that shaped the early debates among IAPh members in relation to the international discourse of that time. The essays represent multifaceted processes of exploring different fields of theory so as to achieve adequate accounts of the cause of women philosophers. The often hotly disputed issues include the idea of a specific women's philosophy, the dichotomy reason versus sensuality, views associating reason, logic, and science with masculinity, notions of the feminine, the relation between philosophy and mythology, feminist social criticism, and discourse ethics. Cornelia Klinger found particular resonance as she examined parallel shortcomings in the conceptions of emancipation discussed in the women's movement and in anti-colonialist theories, for instance, in Senghor's notion of negritude. In terms of schools of philosophy, some papers discuss the relevance of Marxism, Foucault, Irigaray, and analytic philosophy, to cite but a few examples, while others turn to the history of philosophy, examining authors from Socrates and Plato through Hildegard von Bingen to Fichte and Max Weber. Analyzing Otto Weininger, Hannelore Schröder addressed the linkage between anti-feminism and anti-Semitism. The focus of IAPh was also on key political issues of the time, for instance, on the panel at the Heidelberg Symposium 1984 that took up the dispute over violent versus non-violent forms of resistance against the backdrop of the RAF terrorism. It is significant that the early phase of IAPh debates that had been marked by a plurality of uncoordinated topics was brought to an end in 1986 with the Klagenfurt Symposium, which was the first to have a conceptual conference title: Jenseits von Herrschaft, feministische Perspektiven praktischer Philosophie, Beyond Domination, Feminist Perspectives on Practical Philosophy. Incidentally, this was the first IAPh event that I attended, although I had become a member in 1983. I was to serve as a speaker from 1989 to 93. What I have appreciated in particular from the early days until now is IAPh's potential for preventing women philosophers from reflecting their continuous unstable positioning in the academic sphere in an isolated manner, and for achieving ever more elaborate categories of analysis and concerted action. Much public attention was attracted by the 5th IAPh symposium hosted by the Technical University Berlin in April 1989 that marked the 200th anniversary of the French Revolution under the title 1989, die Revolution hat nicht stattgefunden. The revolution has not taken place. The documentation, edited by Astrid Däuber-Mankowski, Ulrike Ramming, and Valeska Tilsch, was published in the same year, dedicated to Valeska Tilsch for her 80th birthday. It is worth noting that this volume was the last to contain exclusively papers in German. A big leap forward in terms of internationalization was taken with the 6th symposium that took place at the Free University Amsterdam in 1992 under the title, the English title, Against Patriarchal Thinking, A Future Without Discrimination, ? It was organized by Maja Pelikan-Engel, Hannelore Schröder, and Mariette Willemsen. The proceedings were edited by Maja Pelikan-Engel in the same year, with an edition that comprises a number of political statements concerning the economic and sexual exploitation of women, and a petition under the heading, I'm quoting, Women Around the World petition the United Nations to recognize women's human rights. The process of internationalization received a decisive enhancement through the contacts with FISP, the organizer of the World Congresses of Philosophy. As early as 1978, when the 16th World Congress of Philosophy was held in Düsseldorf, Valeska Tisch and Brigitte Weishaupt introduced the IAPh in an informal event in the context of that Congress. In 1982, already in 1982, IAPh became a regular FISP member society. From then on, its society meetings were included in the programs of the World Congresses. Brigitte Weishaupt and I organized such meetings with the aim to share information on IAPh with a global audience at the World Congress in Montreal, 88, and Brighton, 93. The World Congress in Boston, 1998, brought two important innovations. Firstly, the regular IAPh symposium was held in Boston on the days before the World Congress, a constellation that has been continued up to the present, as you know, allowing IAPh to establish cooperation with women philosophers at first, for instance, in South Korea and China. Secondly, IAPh successfully nominated me as the members of the steering committee of FISP were elected. This function of a member of a steering committee allowed me to find support for the plan that Congress sections on gender issues and feminist philosophers should become a regular part of the World Congresses. Later on, I suggested establishing a specially endowed plenary lecture, the Simone de Beauvoir lecture, which was first held by Judith Butler at the World Congress in Beijing, 2018. Furthermore, the permanent FISP Gender Committee was founded, the chairperson of which is a member of IAPh, Sigrid Torgeisdottir, whom you have heard today already. Regarding the history of IAPh since its early days, I would like to suggest to the current board members to establish some kind of permanent archive, maybe a digitalized archive, including a collection of photos that many of us might be able to contribute. I have such early photos myself. It seems to me like a project that is worthwhile in connection with the preparations for the 50th anniversary. If you take 74 as the true beginning, it would be 24 exactly when the next World Congress is to be held in Rome. Finally, I would like to express my confidence that IAPh will continue with its commitment across the globe. There is so much more to do in challenging the asymmetries women philosophers are facing until now. I am convinced that IAPh will be moving further along interesting paths auf Wegen ins dritte Jahrtausend. Thank you very much.